No,
But the stories,
but the truth is the roadies have the best stories.
Thanks for checking out Party Like a Rockstar podcast. I'm your host, Joel Miller. Today's episode is brought to you by Misha's Kind Foods. They're an LA-based small business making the world's finest non-dairy cheese spreads on the market today. They're delicious and healthy, made from a cashew and almond milk, and blended with various locally sourced fresh herbs, vegetables, and spices. There's no vegetable oils, soy, fillers, starches, or nutritional yeast. It's lactose-free, paleo, keto, kosher, Parev, and 100% vegan. Enjoy the show. All right, cool. All right, let's give her a go. Bruce Sudano is an American singer-songwriter. He was a member of the Brooklyn Dreams and is noted for creating songs for artists such as Michael Jackson and Jermaine Jackson, Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, and his wife, the Grammy Award-winning singer Donna Summer. He's recently released 2 albums, Spirals Volume 1 and Spirals Volume 2. It's easy to remember, so you can get them both. My second guest is AJ Smith. He's an indie pop singer-songwriter, and he's going to be opening up for Billy Joel, and he did open up for the Eagles. He's the winner of the Abe Oleman Scholarship from the Songwriters Hall of Fame. And I began researching you guys by looking up Abe Oleman, and what a treat, man. What a total treat. What a neat guy. The guy lived till he was 90-something years old, What a cool life. So it was neat. Second thing I researched was you, AJ, doing your, I don't know, it was like a doctoral thesis speech. It was something that I was way over the heads of most of the people I talked to, but I'm like, am I a moon person? Am I a sun person? Like, I don't know who I am, but you're very good. So I'd love to open it up. We've all written a little bit of music. I don't know if you guys know who I am at all, but I've written a little bit of lyrics and stuff. So I wrote a song for Darius Rucker. But my question is, I haven't talked to anybody who got a master's degree in music writing, and I did learn a little bit by listening to you. So I have cheated, but I'm totally intrigued about what they teach you in these courses.
That's a really interesting question because, it's songwriting, right? It's like, yeah. I feel like, like people like Bruce have the honorary life earned master's degree in songwriting, and then then it just got codified. A bunch of songwriters. Phil Galdston was the head of the songwriting department at NYU. It used to be an elective, and there were enough people that were interested in learning how to write better songs and learning the techniques of lyric writing that they ended up turning it into a program. And I was the first student to go through it. And through that, like Glenn Frey, that's how I got connected with the Eagles. His daughter went to NYU. And so when you're like a legendary songwriter and your kid goes to a school, you're going to stop by their like music department. And that's what he did. And he listened to my songs, and he was like, oh, I want to work with this kid. So, wow. He taught me things that you probably would have picked up on already, but it's like this master class. It just accelerates all of that. I still, like, for some reason to this day, some of the things that stick out are like him just saying, oh yeah, you want to make every guitar part or every instrument needs to have a hook too, not just your vocal, when you're producing. And that is still something when I'm producing now, I like hear him in the back of my head saying make that guitar part a hook. Why don't just play a block chord? Like,
don't be lazy. Don't be lazy.
Yeah. make that catchy too. People, because the guitarist that's a fan will want to learn that part, and then their friend will want to sing. So like, yeah.
My qualms of is overthinking, and overthinking usually destroys your song. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Underthinking.
He's written a lot more than both of us. So,
well. Yeah, overthinking. You don't want to think too much. Kind of what I always remind myself as I'm writing a song is the question I always ask myself is, what is it I'm trying to say? Yeah. And I don't always know the answer to that question when I'm starting a song, but as you're going down that road, that's the question I remember. What's my point here? What am I trying to say? And how can I say it in the most non-cliche, the most honest but creative way, so that's what I always strive to do whenever I'm writing a song, is
My problem would be I'd come up with that idea, I'd write my first verse, and then I'd be like, crap. Now I gotta think about the second verse and where I'm gonna go with this.
Right. Yeah.
I have tons of verses that I started that became different songs. You trash them and they show up later in life, you know.
Ooh, got an idea. Yeah. Okay, so Bruce, I'm gonna pick on you a little because I found it entertaining. So in your bio that I had found or read, I don't know where I got it, but it said Sudano started on the accordion, but then he taught himself to play piano and guitar. And it was the way it was written, I thought was so funny, where you kind of like, we need to get rid of this accordion.
Yeah, I mean, the accordion was kind of like thrust on me by my Italian grandfather. You know, he kind of went back to Italy and came home back to Brooklyn where I was growing up. And, you know, I was 4 years old and handed an accordion, and I was kind of like obliged to take, you know, music lessons. But, you know, by the time, you know, I got to be a teenager and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were rocking it, you know, I did take the accordion as far as I could. I had a pickup on it. You know, I was playing in a rock band, you know, with an accordion in the beginning, you know, but ultimately it evolved to a Farfisa organ and then a Hammond B3 and
great,
you know, guitars. But that's how the accordion happened, you know.
Yeah, cool. How did you meet Joe Escobedo?
Joe Esposito, we grew up in the same neighborhood, and when we grew up, you know, I was kind of always in the rock band of the neighborhood, and Joe came out of a background of singing groups, and so he had a singing group, and somehow my band ended up backing up his vocal group on a couple of gigs. And we were probably 15 at the time, and so you know, from then on.
By then, you're an accordion expert.
By then, I was already beyond the accordion. I think I was playing bass guitar at that point. But that's when I met Joe. We were 15, 16 years old, and you know, we've been lifelong friends ever since. So,
did you meet Giorgio first or Donna Summer?
I met Donna first.
You met Donna, okay. And then, because I've met Giorgio and he's very entertaining. And how did
he is?
He's great. The Moroder car, I remember, and I'm kind of like, what made you think I'm going to start from scratch and build a car? Right? So, and the studio's next to each other. He's just a colorful guy. He's a neat fella. So, how did you meet Giorgio?
I met Donna in 1977. And we started writing songs right away, and what? Decline that.
It's Giorgio. He's like, stop talking about me.
Exactly.
I had a good car.
He did. I mean, you know, and Giorgio. So I guess I met Giorgio in the studio, Westlake Recording Studio out in LA. It was 1977. They were working on an album called I Remember Yesterday.
Okay.
And myself, Joe Esposito, got called in to sing background vocals on that album. And was the first time we met Giorgio.
Oh, okay. All right. And then how did you, and so Donna, you were working with her first.
Yes. And Brooklyn Dreams ended up going out on tour with her. And then 3 years later we were married.
Oh, that's quick. Oh, that's good. Oh.
Yeah.
Donna Summer fan, AJ? You have to say yes.
Of course.
Good.
What are you talking about?
So good answer.
That Billy Joel song you did fantastic. Confetti's fantastic. I do like your music.
It is.
I wouldn't just say, I promise you.
Thank you.
Why'd you pick Billy Joel?
Well, I mean, you know, growing up, my parents obviously played Billy Joel a lot for me, and that was kind of what was on in the car whenever we go anywhere. But for my fiance, I just proposed to her a couple months ago. She
She
She's
said, write a
from
song about
Long
Billy
Island.
Joel or it's over.
Exactly. No.
There's writer's
You know,
inspiration.
oh, if you need a fire right there, that's it. Write a hit or we're done. No.
It's been
no,
done.
she grew up in Long Island. Her family's super Long Island, Mets, Billy Joel, and wine, like, and that kind of vibe, you know, like Italian immigrants and all of that. So they I was going over to her house for the first time to meet the family, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna go meet the Italian family. I don't even know, like, what I'm a musician. I don't know if they're gonna even like I knew that her dad worked in finance and her brother worked in finance. I'm like, oh, they're gonna think I'm a schmuck. And so I go in and I don't follow baseball. I didn't know. So I'm like Googling Mets scores on my phone, and I'm like, they just lost and they had just made it to the playoffs for the first time in a while. So I was like, oh, I can't talk about the Mets. That's gonna be a sore subject. She was like, just relax, just be yourself. And I'm like, I don't even know how to. It's like how do you be yourself when you don't? It was like a stressful situation. And we're there, we're having dinner. It's going great. And they're like, hey, so you're a musician, right? Do you know any Billy Joel? And I was like, oh yeah. And so like I go hop over on the family piano and we start just jamming to a bunch of Billy Joel songs. And then her brother was like, do you know Root Beer Rag? And I was like, no, I actually don't even know that one. And he was like playing me that. And I was learning stuff by ear to play for them. And so then when that
Nice.
day, I like wrote in my phone on the train ride back to the city, I want to write a song called Billy Joel about just kind of about the significance in my relationship. I don't know what it's going to be about yet, but I know it's going to be important. And so that's kind of the background on that.
It was neat because I remember being John Malkovich. And so John Malkovich got the script and he's like, I'll do it. You know, can you imagine? The writer must have been like, wow. And the writer is, I think it's Charlie Kaufman. So he was already going pretty well. But so how did you get your song to Billy's ears?
Well, you know, you don't want to release a song where you're name checking somebody and then have them come out and be like, this sucks. Or like, I don't like that you did this. So before I put it out, I wanted to try to see, hey, could I at least, you know, get like a sign of approval, just like, hey, yeah, it's fine. You can do that. And, you know, like I have my management team and all of that, they had reached out, but hadn't heard back yet. And I was catching up with Linda Moran, who's the president of the Songwriters Hall of Fame, where I got the scholarship from. And she's awesome. She's like just an amazing person. They gave Billy the Mercer Award, like Lifetime Achievement Songwriting Award a few years back. And so like, she was like, oh, I'll just send this to Claire, Billy's publicist. This is a great song. He would love it. I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you know, like he's a private guy. He's like not necessarily gonna like a lot of random stuff that you would send, but I think he would really like this one. And so she sent to Billy's publicist and he wrote back through that. And that's kind of how that all started.
That's awesome. Good for you. Cause that's a big, that's a big hill, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's neat. So back to picking on Bruce. The first, I'm picking on you because I read you're in Italy right now, I think, right?
I am, yes.
But you live in Thousand Oaks, and I just left Thousand Oaks. I just moved to Tarzana, but I was in a Malibu Lake for 10 years.
Okay.
You left my neck of the woods.
Yeah. I don't live. I live in the Hollywood Hills now, but for a long time I lived on Potrero Road.
Sure.
And that's kind of where when my kids were young and everything, that's kind of where they grew up. And
it's a great area.
Yeah.
So,
beautiful. Yeah.
You said here that during the 80s, you were writing bad songs, and you said it because the musicians were playing with words and you found it difficult to write that way. It was in an interview I heard you say, but you released Starting Over Again in 1980. So that's part of the 80s. So my question is not to put you on the spot, but more to make it a broader question, which is for the songwriting purpose. So the BeeGees film, did either of you guys see it? The one that came out recently?
I did. Yes.
It's really great. You should, AJ. And I knew most of it, but there was a few things I wasn't aware of. And the most intriguing part was how they continued to change their careers, but they were songwriters the whole time. They were really just songwriters, but they continued to develop their careers and change their careers based on what was happening with music at the time. So this thing that you had said in this interview I watched just made me think of that, where you have a different thing going on. Did Donna Summer get flack like they did in regards to like disco, that they kind of project in the film?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I sometimes, when I listen to the radio now and I think back to then, I mean, there was a big period of time where, they wouldn't play disco on the radio. And it's kind of hard to believe now, but it was really always a fight and always a struggle. So, it's kind of ironic now that, that's the basis of the whole form of pop music these days is that. But no, but my thing in the 80s was that, I mean, I'm kind of a songwriter in that, I like to write story songs and in the 80s, music was changing and I kind of lost my way as a writer because I was trying to chase what was happening. So it was also the time of when things started to becoming, programming. So there was a big learning curve, shift in philosophy of a lot of things that I had to make the shift of. And so learning, programming drums and everything that everybody knows how to do on their phone now, it was all completely new then. And, the Lin drum machine and the Lin 9000 and all the different, the first software, I mean, I can't tell you how many days I spent in the studio that I would work all day, get to the end of the day, and then lose everything, because there would be a big crash, so in that sense, the 80s was a hard time for me because I was focusing on the wrong things,
Neil Young too.
Yeah,
I was gonna throw that in there. I don't know, maybe it has nothing to do with it.
Are you trying to make me feel better? Well, good job.
So one of the things, I just listened to you sing Starting Over Again on, I think it was a link on Facebook, and there's just, JJ Cale singing Cocaine is, so much better to me than Eric Clapton. But I love the singer-songwriters, and it's always just something more special because it comes from you. That's a personal song. I believe it's about your parents' divorce.
Yeah.
I was talking yesterday to the guys from Blessed Unions of Soul, and their big hit was I Believe, and the song was about Elliot splitting up with his girlfriend because her parents were racist and they wanted him not to be around. So and I said to him, it must be difficult to write a song about splitting up with somebody, and then for the rest of your life, people will be like, tell me about the split up.
Right. Yeah.
You're like, oh, why did I write this song? So Starting Over Again is a difficult song for you to have written. And then you're stuck with it all the time with the thoughts that made it difficult to write. Honestly, such a beautiful song, Bruce. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, the strangest part about that song, I mean, I was really lucky with that song. I mean, it was just a fortuitous thing of how it happened. It was, Donna was going to do the Tonight Show, and she was going on the Tonight Show to promote her whatever single was coming out at that particular moment of her record. And she just came to me and said, I'm going to sing Starting Over Again tonight on the Tonight Show. And I was like, you can't do that. You got to promote your single. Why would you do that anyway? And she said, well, maybe if I sing it, the parents will stay together. Yeah. And I was like, that's a really beautiful thing to even conceive, but, it's not going to happen. So, you need to do your single. But, she went ahead and did it. And literally the next day, Dolly Parton's people were calling, asking about the song. And so I always make the joke when I sing it, so all you songwriters, if you want to get a cut, have your wife singing on the Tonight Show, and but so it was just lucky.
You were reluctant to have Donna not record it before Dolly, right?
Well, the reality is Donna never even recorded the song.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, she never recorded it. I mean, I probably have a demo of her singing it here or there. She's subsequently. I think there's some YouTube, of her singing it live. In fact, I know there is. So she sang it live a number of times, but she never actually recorded the song.
Huh. Now, speaking of that, so the song Protection, I read online that they did record a duet with her and Bruce Springsteen, but they never released the duet.
Yeah.
So how come they didn't release it, or did they plan to? I love Bruce Springsteen, so.
Yeah, well, who doesn't?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of difficult not to.
He never signed on to do it as a duet. It was a record that Quincy was producing, and so basically what happened is we were living in Hancock Park at the time, and Bruce came to the house. This is 1980, and I had a little studio in the back, and he had written a couple of songs. He wrote it was another song called Cover Me, which he recorded, and he wrote Protection. Both he wrote with Donna in mind. And, kind of demoed them at the house. Quincy decided it was going to be Protection, cut the track, and it was never intended to be a duet. It was kind of like Bruce was going to, I think Quincy was trying to bring Bruce in on the project and said, would you be interested in writing a song for Donna? And Bruce loved Donna. He was a big fan of Hot Stuff. He loved that record. So, I think contractually it couldn't work out. So there is I know that there is the master tape with Bruce's vocal on there, but there's no permission to ever use it. So I think the most that we got of Bruce on the song, other than him writing the song, was him playing guitar.
AJ, you're the smart one. We got to make this happen.
I could
write a song called Bruce Springsteen, and then
man.
I was to say that next. I was like, I'll just write one called The Boss, and then
there you go.
Yeah,
and you have a couple of pitching. You could try Diana Ross or Springsteen.
We'll give you a list. Didn't Keith Forsey wrote Hot Stuff? Didn't he?
Keith Forsey and Harold Faltermeyer.
I didn't know Harold wrote that.
Yeah,
Oh.
co-wrote it. Yeah.
You got any good Keith stories? I love Keith.
Keith is just.
This guy was. Do you know who he is, AJ?
No, I don't.
Real quick, he's Billy Idol's producer. He wrote. He co-wrote Hot Stuff, and then he wrote "Don't You Forget About Me." I think he co-wrote Flashdance. So, but he's super entertaining. He's really, really fun guy.
Yeah. So Keith is English, and he was Donna's drummer on all her early records. That's Keith, Four on the Floor. So he co-wrote a bunch of songs with Giorgio and Harold for Donna Records. And we were all kind of wild child back in those days. I'm sure he's a lot calmer now than.
His stories are amazing.
Yeah.
He's living on a boat in Mexico, I think.
Yes, this I know. Yes,
taking it easy.
And he and Harold are still good friends. So
I love that guy. So,
yeah.
I'm 20 years old working at a place called the Jungle Room Recording Studio, which is where a lot of these guys came through, right? And anytime Keith would come in, I'd be so excited because I knew I could get some stupid old story out of him that was just. Yeah. I don't know if they were made up or not, and I don't care.
No, I don't think he was making them up.
I don't think so either, because I've heard the stories now from other people, and I'm sort of like, wow.
Yeah, it was a wild, fun time. It was really innocent. It was just a fun time. That was the thing about the 70s, is that it was just a fun time. It was like, we came out of the 60s and Vietnam and all that. And once we got past Nixon, in the early 70s, then things just went into, Marvin Gaye and rhythm records and clubs starting to happen and people just wanting to have a good time.
Awesome.
And so So a good time was had by all.
Yeah.
Until AIDS, and that's what broke that cycle. Then
bounce back. We're bouncing back. So I've been picking on Bruce. So I'm gonna pick on you now, AJ. It's your turn. So
Bring it.
what musical artist that we're gonna test your music knowledge here? What musical artist said at the end of the day, it's just plain hard work?
Oh, well, that's Glenn.
No, it's in your speech.
Really?
Yeah, it's Leonard Cohen.
Oh my gosh, it's Leonard Cohen. Yep. Yes.
So
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
And you know what? That's in the book Songwriters on Songwriting. I'm not sure if you've read that.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's actually an amazing book by Paul Zolo.
Cool.
Who wrote that one. It's got some amazing interviews in there. Yeah.
So do you agree that songwriting is at the end of the day just hard work, I guess? So
it's a labor of love, you know?
Do you write for you or do you write for other people?
Both. You're in the communications business, right? But you know, some songs you don't write for people to hear, and some you do. I mean, I think most people that, especially if you're drawn into the artist, you know, as a songwriter and an artist, you're drawn into getting those songs in front of people to communicate something that's deep inside that you want to share with people. You know, songwriting in its original form, when it was us as cavemen or whatever around a fire, that it was an act of community, right? And I think it's still that. Sometimes it can be far in
building a fire pit, by the way. No, we haven't come. They're literally out there doing it right now, so we haven't come far.
It's still that.
Yeah.
Still.
So AJ and I will be over, and we'll sit around the fire and pass the guitar around, the three of us.
There you go.
Man, I'm ready.
Sounds perfect.
I'm ready for it to happen. Don't bring the accordion. No, I'm kidding. I actually like the accordion, which is why I brought it. I think the accordion's a neat looking instrument.
Yeah, the accordion is actually, I've been reassessing the accordion myself recently, and it's really an amazing instrument. You know, you have all the bass clef on the left side and the treble clef on the right side, and you can cover a lot of ground with an accordion. It's a beautiful instrument.
I think it's super neat. They're always
a revival.
I think it's actually poised to make a comeback. I've seen a couple indie artists that are starting to I'm trying to remember who, but I've been seeing some people that are kind of blowing up that are using accordion now.
Yeah.
So when you do the Billy Joel shows, are you guys doing Red Rocks, AJ?
Goals. I'm actually not sure yet which and I'm not sure what I can talk about fully just yet, but
fair enough.
That would be on my goal dream list. Whether or not that's on Billy's list of venues to have me at, I'll leave that up to him.
AJ's first show was seeing Yanni when he was a little dude at the Red Rocks. So figure I give him a hard time about it. What was your first show, Bruce, that you saw as a kid?
My first show was Brooklyn Fox Theater, Alan Freed. It was a review show, so it would be like, you know, a bunch of the Impalas and the Four Tops and Dion and the Belmonts, and you know, I was about 10 years old, and this was an initial really an impetus for me doing what I set out my life on. And the odd thing about that is that in 1978, I got to be in a movie called American Hot Wax, which was basically based on, it basically took place at the Brooklyn Fox Theater. It recreated that whole story of Alan Freed and Paola and those shows from those days. And I actually got to be a singer in that movie, which was my inspiration to get into the music business in the first place. So it was kind of a nice circle.
Yeah, how neat is that? Did you guys ever do any stuff with the Tower of Power guys?
I did a couple of Tower of Power. You know, I was in a band called Alive and Kickin', and we had a hit record in 1970 called Tighter and Tighter. And so in that cycle of time, Alive and Kickin' did some shows with Tower of Power. We did some shows with the Mothers of Invention. We did some shows with Eric Burden and War.
Yeah.
We did some shows with the early Chicago with Terry Kath. Terry Kath, I think his name was. So that was my only exposure of Tower of Power. But what a funky group that was, and that was Jocko on bass, right? Is that?
I had Emilio on here the other day with Angelo from Fishbone, and it was entertaining. It's hard to wrangle Angelo. I grew up with him. But he was good. He was pretty good. You know, we were talking about James Brown, and he's like, "You guys did a song on James Brown." I'm like, "Just go with it, Angelo. He's like 70-something years old. Just pretend you know."
Right.
Come on. So, but we had a good time. I think Emilio was having a pretty good laugh at the end. I think he's like, I don't even know what that is. So
that's great.
Good. And then I had Ahmet Zappa too. Ahmet Zappa was on here, and he was awesome. He's a great guy. That was super fun. So. Yeah. Questions. So I was going to start a podcast, and I was having dinner at my friend's house, and my friends all have little kids now. And so my friend's daughter's in 5th grade, and her 5th grade friends were over there, and they were thinking intently on what I need to ask guests. And their question was a relevant one. I thought it was a good one. And it was, when did you first feel famous? So I like the question because I've had fantastic answers. But it doesn't have to just be when you first felt famous, because remember, we're talking to a 5-year-old. So it could be when you first felt you were on the right path. There was a moment in your career. There was a moment in your life. There was something that just shines to you that makes you smile. What would you guys pick?
Go, AJ.
Man. I think one of the first, I mean, obviously opening for the Eagles was a big one, but I was still pretty... I was just like out of it for that entire experience. I kind of blacked out and then woke up later. I think the next one though was I was opening for Lindsey Stirling, and that was like a 3,000 person show, outdoor kind of thing. I hadn't played a music festival yet, I don't think, at that time. And you know, most people don't pay any attention to the openers, but people were actually paying attention at her show to me. And that was the first time I heard people sing my lyrics back to me, like in volume, as opposed to just like in my 100-person venues that I can play. Like at that stage, it was like, it was just awesome. And even though I'm still personally like I'm still working to get out, I'm not there yet to headline those types of venues. That's sort of been like an inspiring goal to keep me pushing, is like, I want to experience that regularly. Like that'd be awesome. Yeah.
The correct answer was when I got engaged, but
what was the happiest moment of your life?
We'll do a follow-up. I love that. That was a great answer. That was a good one. What do you got for me, Bruce?
I would say the first time I was on American Bandstand.
Oh.
And this was, again, with this Alive and Kickin' in 1970. I had never been on a plane before. I was 20 years old. And we flew to Los Angeles to do American Bandstand. And to me, that was making it. That was like, you're on American Bandstand with Dick Clark. That's, you know.
It's pretty cool.
You know, at the same time, hearing your record on the radio, you know, so it was like a combination of those two things that, you know, made me feel like, okay, I've arrived. Little did I know that it's a roller coaster, baby.
Yeah. So you're from Brooklyn?
I'm from Brooklyn, yeah.
So there's an actor, his name's Robert Miano, and he's from Brooklyn. I think he's from Brooklyn, but he's a New Yorker. And so he was doing a film I was doing, and all day I was talking shit to him. I'm gonna kick your ass in pool. I'm gonna kick your ass, old man, or whatever. So I can't play pool. I'm actually terrible. I was just giving him a hard time all day.
Right.
Pool hall, and he's like, so good. You miss one ball, You definitely would.
Yeah, then he runs the table.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so at the end,
you can't mess around with those guys. Those guys from old guys from Brooklyn, man. They.
Well, that's where I was going. Do you miss stickball?
Yeah, I miss it all, man. It's like, I mean, the interesting thing is like, it's like I go back to Brooklyn now. In fact, I wrote a song about it. But it's like the buildings are the same, but the neighborhood has changed. It was really a special time to grow up in New York, in Brooklyn, in those days. And it was. There were lots of clubs to play. I mean, I spent my teens going to high school and going to college, playing 3, 5, 6 nights a week. Every little neighborhood had a bar with a band, and you could work and learn your craft, and so it was a great time. And but I later named my band Brooklyn Dreams, and one of my children's name is Brooklyn. So I'm committed.
There, yeah. You're in New York still, AJ, or?
I just moved down to Nashville actually last August.
There's a good music scene. That's intimidating. Some of those guys are no joke.
Yeah, well, and that's actually what's been nice about having done my master's. I don't know why I put that in air quotes.
Yeah, you don't put in quotes. I love it.
It's a piece of paper. But that's where I felt like I actually kind of got that Nashville thing. Like you come down and people are like, oh yeah, but are you a Nashville songwriter? Because they kind of look at lyrics a little bit differently here than in LA or New York or other parts of the world. And I was like, well, I learned from Nashville songwriters. So yeah.
They told me you have to describe it. So it's not a Chevy truck. It's a purple Chevy truck with rusty bumpers. You have to describe. And I'm like, okay, I'll describe.
Yeah. They want to get people to invite the senses. Well, I mean, a lot of things too is like in country music. I mean, any songwriting, really, pop, whatever. How many stories do we all really have to tell that are completely unique, right? Like versus, but we're all trying to put our unique perspective on the same story over and over again. So like, yeah, you have to dive into those details.
Yeah. Have you guys found like there's certain words that you like because they're so easy to rhyme with? When you're writing through the song, you're like, oh, that's my go-to.
You have your placeholder words that that you're going to replace, but you just use.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Actually, I don't do that. I don't even think I have favorite words or even placeholder. I mean, sometimes I obviously have placeholder melodies or placeholder sounds. Because I think so much of melody has to do with sound as well, but I don't think I have go-to words.
So I wanted to write a song called Nosferatu, and the guy's like, it's not gonna work. I'm like, we got to make it work because it's great. Nosferatu, I still love you, Nosferatu, and they were kind of like, we're not doing that. That's a terrible idea.
Just put a good beat to it, man.
Like, just make it happen. You're the musician. You're a musician. You're the one who's got talent. Make it work. Make it work.
So where are you now? Where are you? Where are we talking to you at?
I'm in Tarzana. So I was living in Malibu Lake for a decade or so, and I sold my house recently, and I moved up here in Tarzana. I'm by the country club, the Braemar Country Club, and it's okay up here. I'm getting used to it. I mean, what's nice is like going into Hollywood Hills, 5 minutes. Yeah. So, but before people would be like, why don't you come hang out? And I'll be like, cause I'm all the way up in the Malibu Lake. And then they'd be like, yeah, well, I'm like, yeah, but I didn't care. I didn't really want to hang out with anybody. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, too far, but good luck at your kids' party.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, now we're not far. So when I'm back in LA,
hit me up. Yeah, hit me up. I'll shoot you my information. Hey, thanks for watching Party Like a Rock Star. If you're not already subscribed to the Facebook or YouTube channels, do it. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. The handle is Party of Stars. Thanks for watching. See you next time.